Let's talk with the Executive Vice President of Innovation at LG Electronics about how the company is working to spark innovation within itself and looking to build the businesses of the future in a method that itself is innovative. We're joined today by Sokwoo Rhee. He is, as I mentioned, Executive Vice President of Innovation at LG. And first of all, Sokwoo, I'm thrilled to have you here in a conversation sponsored by LG. Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And thank you for inviting me to LG InnoFest, which is your innovation festival. It's going to be next week in San Francisco, September 25th and September 26th, at I think the coolest venue in the entire city, the Palace of Fine Arts. So tell us a little bit about the event.
Absolutely. Yeah. So every year we have this innovation festival, and it's our gift to the innovation community. Put it that way. It's a party. They throw in no pressure. I mean, it's going to be business as usual, business show anyway. However, we want everybody to come in and do not feel like they are pressured to do business. It's a party. Come in, enjoy, talk about what your interest is, and you'll see a lot of people over there that share the same interest and same kind of spirit. So that's going to be fun.
And do you have to pay to get in?
No, that's what our party's for.
That is a party.
We threw a party for
Nice.
innovators.
Okay. Well, I'll be there. I'm excited. I know you also have the one of the founders of Siri that's going to be there. What a moment to have that conversation, especially as it's AI and voice AI this year more than ever is something that people are speaking about. So let me ask you this to start, because when I first heard of LG Nova, I was a little bit surprised. It is such a unique structure within LG Electronics. We all know about LG products. I've been a customer. I've used the LG phones back in the day, and I have more LG products here in my house. What is it like setting up an incubator, or is it even the right phrase to call it an incubator, but an innovation-minded division within the company that's trying to find net new technology for it? So not trying to innovate on current products, I believe, but really trying to find the technology of the future that LG can co-invest with and build and help develop and foster and to stay on the cutting edge. Tell us a little bit about it.
Alex, I think you hit the head of the nail. So LG Electronics, $70 billion annual revenue with appliances and TVs and so on. So it's one of the largest appliances companies in the world. We are doing very well. We grow every year, they're between 8 to 10% consistently. And it's just a great growth from the perspective of a hardware company. Now, we also look at the future. So at the end of the day, there are non-hardware businesses in the world that are growing probably faster with a bigger profit margin. So that's what you're looking at. And LG Electronics thought that it would be better to create a new division to create new businesses and business units for those kind of future growth areas. So that's what we are. That's in a sense that our mission, you said it correctly, is to create new businesses that LG Electronics has never thought about, or they thought about it, but that couldn't make it work. So that's our mission.
Okay, so new division, it's about 3 years old, but it sounds really logical when you talk about the mission, find net new businesses, but to actually go about it in practice and do it in practice, that's hard. I mean, that is hard work. And I don't know, to be honest, if there's like a natural way to do it from within a company that's as large as you say. So how does the process work? Okay, are you funding startups? Are you starting products within the company? What exactly do you do to bet on this net new technology?
Yeah. So we do everything we just mentioned. However, we combine those different pieces into a streamlined process. I think that's probably what is the most unique perspective and unique point of LG Nova. So LG Electronics, again, is a huge, large company, but they are very much hardware minded. It's because the manufacturing is the bread and butter of LG Electronics. So it is not that natural to think about doing non-hardware businesses as a company as a whole. And there are probably less expertise on non-hardware businesses than expected or than ideal. So when it created this new division, and I was first, I joined LG only 3.5 years ago, so I'm new too. So when I came in, I looked at what I should do, and LG actually asked me to design the process, asked me to think about what you should do to make it work, because traditionally, these hardware companies have a hard time transforming themselves into non-hardware companies. So what he thought about was pretty simple. Okay, we may not have all the expertise in-house because LG is a hardware company. We may not have all the collaborators and partners that we can get to because we are a hardware company. Let's get that from outside. When I say get that, we're not saying that we should bring them into our umbrella as a whole. It's more like let's find a sweet spot that LG can provide something, and other non-hardware minded top-notch companies, including top-notch startups, can provide something. We can find an intersection over there. So put it simply, we are looking for startup companies that are willing to work with LG Nova to create the businesses that LG has never done before. So this sounds like a little contradictory because startups come to LG and say the LG is an appliance company. Why would any startup come to us and work with us? That's very, very interesting. So LG has to start from somewhere. So we created a separate division, almost sort of like disconnected or disconnected, probably not the right word, decoupled
Right.
from the mothership or the aircraft carrier, the headquarters, and we hired our own employees from all over the world, and including obviously mostly United States, but with a deep expertise in those non-hardware businesses like AI, healthcare, and clean tech. So when startups comes to us, we have a venture fund that we invest into them if they end up working with us. But at the same time, with the LG's existing capabilities, and existing outreach capabilities to potential partners, LG's brand, and that's what startups come to us and work together to create new businesses. And then those new business is designed to grow with the startups that work with us. So that's how we design this process.
Okay, great. So one question about focus and then one more question about process. So I hear you. The remit is let's find net new businesses, businesses that LG is not in. But then you started to list some very big categories, AI, healthcare. So how do you focus? Like, how do you see a startup and say, this is one uniquely that we're set up to help?
Yeah. So in some sense, we are very open to any sectors, any lucrative sectors that LG should pursue for the future. However, we have to focus to some extent. So we looked at all kinds of different sectors, and we basically picked healthcare, clean tech, and AI as the three focus areas that we should focus. So startups comes to us, and then we work with them. But if they are not inside of those three focus areas, then in terms of priority, they're probably going to become a little less than the startups that on those three major sectors. So in some sense, when startups comes to us and work with us, we looked at them and we work with them. And when I say work with them, we literally get into discussion and brainstorm with them. And it's not only their startup technology. It's not only what LG wants to do. It's a one plus one has to equal three. So we ask, hey, startups, great. You have great stuffs, but what can you do with LG Nova to create something completely new or something that startups can bring something to the table and LG can bring something to the table. It is very much of ideation with startups, not just us. So it's not a one directional conversation. It's basically ideation. And through the process, we see some startups that are very much a fit to work with us. And then those startups are selected to work with us in the long term.
Right. And so it's not just an investment, it's investment and then working together with these startups. It's very active partnership.
Actually, it's the other way around. We have a very specific investment philosophy. We invest into startups only when we know we're going to work with them. It's not like we invest in them and then try to figure out what to do with them. I mean, it's a very different process.
So what does LG bring to the table then?
So we have money. Obviously, the investment is one
That's
piece
good.
of it.
Startups will be
We
happy with
also
that.
have, yes, most of the partnerships we get into with the startups, it comes to the revenue sharing. So whatever we do together, they get a cut, we get a cut. So that's how usually it's structured. I mean, some startups prefer straightforward licensing. We are happy to discuss about that. But most of the cases, because we want to grow with the startups together, we come up with some kind of revenue sharing agreement. So third, this is actually huge. LG, and it's not just LG, LG Nova has established a lot of the partnerships with large corporations, non-LG corporations, and also non-LG organizations, including West Virginia, a state of West Virginia, which was a huge deal. So when startups work with us, they become the first customer. So for startups, usually I did my startup myself, and there are three things they struggle, and those three things are critical in the success of startups. So first, obviously money. They need money. Second is usually the first customer. You need a first customer, and that's really sometimes makes or breaks. Breaks the success of the startups. So okay, we provide opportunity for the first customer to those startups, along with us, obviously. Third one, in my experience, one of the most critical pieces is the brand. So when I go to talk to potential customer, and say, "Hey, I am Sokwoo Rhee. I have my small company here, and I want to work with you." Most of the cases, they respond, "What? Who are you?" that has it just takes a long time and a lot of work for a small startup to sort of like pitch themselves to large corporations and large customers. That's what LG brings to the table. We go to those big customers together with the startups. So that's what makes a big difference from startup business. That's what you offer to startups.
Saku, I want to say that product market fit is a myth. It's not really a myth, right? But it's more than just like you build the product and then all of a sudden you have a gazillion customers. Like that work to try to get that introduction, to try to get that meeting. How critical is that for a startup to be able to take off?
Well, product market fit is actually important because if you have a product that nobody cares about, then you don't have a business. That's the bottom line.
Right.
However, many startups do not even get the chance of pitching or chance of attracting some interest from these customers. That's what you're bringing to the table. Sometimes it's very much a perception issue because large organizations, whether it's a government or corporations, they want to work with a reliable partner. Reliable in a sense that not just because it starts small, reliable in a sense that once they start working with a potential partner, they're looking at years of business together, right? They want the partner to be around and actually they start business. So that's what concerns a lot of these organizations when they work with the startups. Now we are saying that, hey, these startups, not just startups, it's actually LG's business we are creating together. So LG's business means that LG is backing it. LG is in charge of it in some sense, and startup is being part of it. So LG is not going anywhere. So when a big customers and state governments works with this sort of like a group of the LG plus startups together, and there is a certain level of credibility that it provides. I think that's how you grow your business if you are a startup. I mean, at the end of the day, it just takes time. And a lot of startups just takes time, and many startups don't have that time. So that's what LG provides.
Right. It's so crucial in the areas that you're talking about, health tech, clean tech. We've heard VCs talk about these areas forever. And then startups, they go and they get lots of funding and they think they have a product that is really impressive. And by golly, like the incumbents in some of these areas really could use some disruption, and they fail. And I think what you're talking about is exactly why. It's because the companies that make the purchasing decisions here that would be buying from the startups, oh man, like it's the whole like no one got fired for buying IBM type of thing. It's like they're going to go with the most safe option because they want that longevity. And I really see how if you come in the door and you say, listen, we're a startup, our product's better, you know our product's better, and we have a backing of a company that's going to be around for a while, let's talk. And that opens doors.
And this is why we are not just investing into company. Investment actually is not necessarily a back. I mean, it's a backing, but investment has a limited liability, meaning that you just put in money, and the worst case scenario, you lose the money. So from the customer's perspective, okay, you have an investor, large investor, that's good for you if you are a startup, but that doesn't really guarantee the longevity, as you just mentioned, of the business. So we are very different. Of course, we invest, but that's really not the point here. We jointly create the business. LG creates our own business, which we call ourselves a new co or CMBU. And startups become part of it, becomes an integral part of the business. So when we go to the big customers, we don't just go there as a startup. We go there as an LG business, and as a part of it, there is a startup that that becomes that becomes a critical component of the business. So, in some sense, our customers are not just using startup technology. They use and they work with LG, but startup is part of it, and that's how you sort of like if you are a startup, that's how you want to grow your business.
Look, all sounds good in theory, but we want to know what happens when the rubber meets the road. Okay. So
Yeah.
like,
So
can you give us an example of a company that you've worked with that you've been able to apply this philosophy
yeah,
with?
yeah, yeah. So first, yes, in theory, everything sounds good. In reality, there's a lot of work. Probably there are double amount of work to do to make this thing work. And here's why. If you are a startup, you just want to sell your product. I mean, that's what you want to do. You don't have time to, mingle with a big customer, a big partners like LG. So what they do want to do is they just sort of go to the customer and sell it. The problem with that model is obviously, as we just discussed, customers may not have a lot of faith in small companies, and that's what LG brings to the table. But to make it work, they have to work with LG first. They have to work with LG to create a joint business model or a model, LG's business model, that incorporates startups into it, and that has to make money. That's where the product market fit becomes sort of like a scrutinized and validated because LG will not going to do business with a startup unless we think there's a product market fit, basically. So in some sense, that's a good thing for startups because they don't have to if the disastrous situation for startup is they talk to 100 customers and none of them wants to buy it.
Right.
And LG becomes sort of like a first gate or first validation point from startup's perspective. Now, that takes a long time. I mean, jointly coming up with a business model that both parties can agree takes time. And then when you go to the market, doesn't mean that is everything's perfect, even after that point. So I'll give you an example. We have a healthcare company we just spun out about 3 months ago, which is called Prime Focus. That was the first company we developed and established through this process that we just mentioned. We started working with about 5 startups. That company that we spun out is a LG sort of a company, but it works with or started working with 5 companies. It ended up really working with only half of it. The reason is, as you can imagine, that process is hard. But that process, if the startup went to any other company, probably would have done the same thing anyway. Because if you pitch your product to any other companies or customers, they will validate it. They will look at it and see whether this is going to really work or not. So, so it took a long time. It took about a year for us to get there. But once we started the business with this prime focus with new company, now it brings LG's brand. And when you go to talk to West Virginia, they already secured a multi-year partnership with the West Virginia as one of the largest healthcare system. It's a Marshall Health Systems. And then startups that we are working with are part of it. So in some sense, yeah, it took longer than expected, but once it start rolling, it becomes much faster for us and for startups.
All right. And what does Prime Focus do?
Oh, so so the problem they're trying to solve is in West Virginia, there are a lot of population, especially rural area population, that may not have easy access to hospital systems. It's a relatively rural area in West Virginia, and a lot of senior citizens and a lot of the residents are like, 30, 50 miles away from nearest hospitals. The problem with that equation, that situation is that there are a lot of chronic disease conditions that they develop without them even knowing until the symptoms start emerging. So because they just don't go to hospitals very often, or even if they do, it's very hard to revisit them or in a periodic basis. So we work with those hospitals to come up with a remote health monitoring, traditional sense solutions, and it's not like you have to wear anything. It's a video camera. And if you look at the video camera, and then actually it automatically captures your blood pressure and heart rate and so on.
Wow.
So you can just watch TV basically, and it just automatically continuously monitor your health. Of course, because of the privacy, you have a control of your privacy. You can set up the time that you want it, or you can even turn it on and off on an ad hoc basis if you want. But all this information is sent and reviewed by hospitals. And when there's a red flag, they call the patient and saying that, hey, you may not know this, but you gotta come to hospital right now. Okay, so that's kind of like business they are establishing right now, and I think because of the West Virginia's unique situation with the relatively rural area and relatively high these chronic disease rate, so I think it's working pretty well.
Awesome. So let's say you're quite successful here, right? Let's say you're investing in lots of very successful companies. Good problem to have. Does that kind of change the composition of what LG is? Because you're going to have like basically stakes in lots of like very promising new companies. And so where do you go from there?
Yeah. So let me explain to you why we even started this from the beginning, more specifically than just a vision. So LG is a collection of many large companies. Actually, LG Electronics is just one of them. LG under LG umbrella, there are about 64 companies. It changes every year, plus minus, but there are about 64 companies, including LG Chemical, LG Energy Solutions, and all these things. They even have a telco in Korea. Uh, there are the vast majority of those companies are hardware and manufacturing focused. Okay. Our job, my job, is to create six-fifths and six of those multi-billion dollar companies that are very different from the composition of LG that they have right now. Okay, much more software focused, much more service oriented businesses. So you ask the question, will LG's business composition change? Absolutely, if you're successful, and that's exactly what you want to happen. Doesn't
Cool.
mean manufacturing is going to go away. It's going to still be there. It's going to grow, but we're going to have additional and new business lines that it's going to probably grow much faster.
Fascinating. What was the moment in the company where it was decided, hey, we need to do this? I know you came in 3.5 years ago, so right before it was started, but what was the sort of eureka moment where it was like, we probably should do something about net new future tech?
Yeah. So it's not anything new from
Mm,
any large corporation perspective because they all know they have to prepare for the future. LG has been trying that for decades. It's not anything new. Like any big company wants to do that. The problem LG had was they did not see a lot of good success when they try to incubate these businesses internally, when they try to start from pure R&D and in the lab, I mean, that's a typical and traditional way to create new business in hardware world, but that doesn't work very well in a non-hardware and service-oriented world. So they've been struggling, frankly, for over many decades. And I gotta give credit to my boss, who is our CEO, global CEO, Mr. Cho. He was actually chief strategy officer before he became the CEO. And he was the one who hired me to create this LG Nova. And his idea was pretty simple. Okay, we've tried this for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, and we are not seeing a lot of result out of it. So we should completely change the approach to do something different. Okay. So how to do it? Maybe he didn't know all the details. That's why he reached out to me and say, hey, I heard that you are an interesting innovator, good innovator. Do you have any good idea to solve this problem? I have a couple of ideas. And I told him what I had in mind, and he liked it. He hired me to start it. And that's where we are.
Awesome. Do I have time for one last question?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, great. So I got to ask you, what what is the promising areas of technology that you're looking at that, you know, there's like the clearly defined ones, but we hear all the time. I mean, AI, you're on AI, but we hear all the time, metaverse and, this and that. So what do you think is quantum? I don't want to give you the answers on this one, but I'm just kind of curious, where do you find to be like the most promising new area of technology?
Yeah. I think, Alex, I get that question a lot. Okay. I always respond as saying that you really need to look at the business areas, not technology areas.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, all the technologies are enablers from my perspective. And whether this is a really promising technology or not is not decided by the technology itself. It's decided by how and where you apply. So, for example, AI, yeah, is interesting technology. Everybody's on it. Great. AI itself, will it make money itself, the model and LLM? Some will, I believe, but not in the scale that we're looking at. Really, it's
Mm.
going to come down to where we apply the AI, and it doesn't matter which sector it is. It could be healthcare, it could be energy, it could be retail, it could be anything. But where can you create this step function? Where can you create this quantum leap by applying this technology? I think there's where it's going to come down to. So, and the reason I can tell you this is because I went through probably almost similar process when I was working on IoT, Internet of Things. I mean, everybody 20 years ago thought that was going to be the game changer. And it was a game changer in a sense that if you look at your home today, I don't know how many, 20 years ago, I didn't have any sensors at home. Now I have probably
They're
50
all over.
sensors at home. You just crept in, not in a bad sense, crept into our life without us even knowing about it. It has changed our lives. I think that's exactly what enabler is. So I don't buy that there is a one single technology or one single or technology that's going to actually change everything. It's more like where you use it, and I can tell you, AI, we're going to go through this typical Gartner hype cycle. It's really hyped right now. It's going to go down. It's going to get to the rubber meets the road stage at some point, and it's going to struggle to some extent. But it will come back again when it really comes into our lives without us knowing about it everywhere. So healthcare, definitely where AI can help. And home, the smart life, definitely AI can help. So many different things were going to happen. So I think the right question is, where do we think these technologies can change our lives for?
Yeah, so right. I was just experimenting this week actually. So I love taking the large language model chatbots and trying to bootstrap different app ideas on them. And this week I was like, all right, I'm going to try to stick with the whole foods diet for the next little bit. And what I've done with Claude now is I have a running thread and I just upload like the labels of the food I eat. and
Uh-huh.
it like gives it a little analysis about whether it was, honed in onto the whole foods diet. And then I asked it, give me a rating, 1 to 10 for each one of the foods. This is amazing. This would be, by the way, this would be like a huge health app a year ago or 2 years ago before LLMs. And I just think that we're probably just on the surface of what this stuff can do. So your point about AI and how it's applied, right? It's not necessarily like, you know, where's the next leap, although that's important. It's like, what can you do with it? And it's
Exactly.
pretty cool that you're right there in the trenches working with these companies and figuring it out.
And that's exactly what you do. So in AI specifically, LG Nova doesn't necessarily develop another LLM. LG, in general, they have their own LLM models, but LG Nova doesn't. Our mission is to find the next billion-dollar business that leverages AIs and everything else. So that's what interests me.
Well, let me tell you about this new app with LLMs. It tracks your diet. No, I'm kidding. But I'm so excited to be part of the event next week in San Francisco. Big party for innovators. Everyone's welcome. It's called Algae Innofest. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it's going to be September 25th and 26th at the Palace of Fine Arts. I'm pumped. So it's
Come
going to
and
be a good
join
time.
us. It's gonna be fun, and you just relax. And these 2 days in a whole year, just relax yourself and enjoy. I mean, we are all paying a lot of attention to a lot of important stuffs, and sometimes our brain needs a little bit of fun, and that's what you're providing on those 2 days.
Absolutely. And we hope to get you back on the feed, maybe from there.
All
We'll
right.
see.
Okay.
Folks,
We'll do
stay
that.
tuned. All right, Sokwoo, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll be back on the feed shortly with another great video. And then hopefully we can continue this discussion and maybe actually shoot something from InnoFest itself in San Francisco next week. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.